Okay. I don't put up with village idiots very long. Okay.
Hey, what's up, Darth? How you doing this evening?
Hello, Tony. How's that beast?
Oh man, I also got the Microsoft Office suite with it, and man, I didn't realize. Oh, I hear that like the spreadsheet is always the one that you got to know. But oh man, yeah, I've been tinkering around with that. I've been mainly just exploring it and the software and stuff like that. Man, I love this thing, man. It's awesome.
Don't get frustrated with Microsoft Word because it's not as intuitive. But once you know what to do, then it gets easier.
Right. And the reason I want to figure it out though is because, I currently work in trucking, like transport and stuff like that, and it pays pretty, decent. It's just that I don't want to do this forever, man. I honestly don't. Like, I don't. So, the reason I got the computer is to invest in myself, and I want to be able to I want a computer powerful enough to do everything and then be mobile and go where I need to, where I want to at the same time.
Do me a favor. Keep liquids far away.
You tell me that every time, bro.
Do you know how many laptops get wrecked?
Yeah, you tell me that every time too. You trying to jinx me, man?
I'm giving you good advice, man.
Knock on wood. Throw some salt over your shoulder, Darth. Stop saying that to me. Like, holy crap, man.
Oh boy.
Hey, what's up, new person? Are you?
By the way, you should know about your Mac. As good as they are, there are certain things that are like meh. Right? Replacing the internal SSD, I don't think you can do that on the Macs. So
we've talked about this before, Darth.
So make sure that you have backup drives of all of your files on your Mac.
Oh, yeah. I got an external hard drive that, and basically so I back up to the time machine, and then I also back up to an external hard drive.
Okay, that's good. But you should have more than one backup thing.
Yeah. I mean, the main one's going to be, I think...
5 gigabyte external USB drives are pretty cheap.
Right. I have one just specifically for the computer backup.
Yeah, you can get like a 5 gigabyte Seagate external drive, for like maybe $80.
Yeah,
pretty cheap. Yeah.
I think we got a new person on the panel.
Welcome, Michael. What would you like to say?
Yeah. So, how you doing? Long-time listener, first-time caller.
Cool.
So
hold on. Are you sure? You said you're a first-time caller. Are you sure you dialed the right number?
Yeah, I'm sure, Darth Dawkins. I'm sure. I'll tell you what. Let me tell you what else I'm sure. I'm objectively true. I'm objectively sure.
Good.
All right. Okay.
That sounds like two truth claims with the unity state. That's interesting.
Yep, I've made 2 truth claims. Here, my question is, for the purpose of improved apologia, the Euthyphro dilemma. I get this a lot. So I've looked it up, and I want a better way. I want a better way to articulate it. So when we talk about the argument that grounding morality in God's nature does not fully resolve the dilemma, where it raises questions about the nature.
Where'd you get that from?
Okay, so when someone says, would you say that God is objectively moral? And I say, yes, God's nature is objectively good, the intrinsic value external to ourselves. Then the rebuttal to that is, okay, what about when he commands X, Y, and Z, thus making more moral claims? Would you then say he's moral? So in other words, because he is the mind, does that make him the subject and therefore make him subjective? So I can argue
whoever espouses that, they're fools. That's stupid. Okay.
Okay. Yeah,
they're basically using the logical problem of evil, basically.
Because when we're talking about, they're making a category error. So God's mind is characteristically sovereign and providential over all. It is the mind of God that causally imposes and sustains the world that we are in. Okay? Our human minds do not do that. So we are a mixture of subjectivity and objectivity. So, for example, if you read Colossians 1, it talks about Christ being the creator of all things. And it says, in him, he upholds all things. Okay? So what they're doing is these are either noobs or sophists or people who are philosophically oriented who are very deceptive. So what they're trying to do is they're trying to equate God's mental state to our mental states being subjective. And it's a complete category error. Okay?
Okay, I'm gonna make a statement, and I want you to prove or confirm or say if this is just an unrealistic comparison. When someone tells me that I don't believe that there's objective morality, but I do believe that it is subjectively wrong, and therefore it's only wrong by my opinion. If I return and say that's like saying that I don't believe in temperature, then complaining that I need a jacket for when it's cold.
Well, you just made us okay. So one was a mental proposition. So if you're talking about mental proposition, you don't got to prove your opinion at all. You're just saying it's your opinion. You're just saying
You're just invoking your mental state.
yeah. You're just telling us your attitude or your preference towards something.
Yeah.
If you're asserting something as truth or fact, well then that's got to be a proposition about something that's verifiable, and therefore a burden of proof must be there.
Right. So as soon as they cling to the subjectivity of their opinion and claim intellectual consistency, it therefore becomes invalid because they can no longer justify any claims that they make. Is that what you're saying?
When they reject that they are in the God of the Bible's world, okay, in the God-dependent, self-revealing God, then all of their declarations, not just their moral declarations, all of their, propositional statements external to themselves are grounded in pure relativism. Okay, because their world is shrouded in ultimate mystery. In the Christian worldview, our world is not shrouded in ultimate mystery. Now, we cannot understand God exhaustively, but we can understand God to the extent that he has purposed that we can know him. So
that
our
as much
world,
as systematic theology will allow.
yeah. So our world is not shrouded in ultimate mystery, but theirs is. Now,
Yes. Yeah.
you
Okay.
can just turn. You see, there are some really fantastic, really simple questions that you can use to slay them. Okay, and one of them is, what you do is you briefly state the Christian worldview, right? Because there's no neutrality. We're not trying to persuade them abductively. We're just going to simply restate what God has revealed, and that when they reject it, our goal is not merely to
The burden of proof is now shifted.
or convince them. It's to show them that the Christian worldview and God's revelation is the only rational worldview to hold to.
Right.
And so then you point out to them and saying, in the Christian worldview, when it comes to morality, when it comes to 2 + 2 = 4, or I have 5 fingers on my hand, whatever propositions you want to talk about, it's going to have to be contextualized either explicitly or more typically implicitly. And the mind, the purpose, the plan, and the character of God is our ultimate context.
Right.
Okay? Now, when they reject that, when they go, "Oh, you didn't prove it," say, "Good." And you must make it clear to them that when they voice incredulity or doubt or non-acceptance, that implicit, inherent in that response is a worldview counterclaim. 98 to 99% of your interlocutors are not going to be cognizant or even admit to this. Right? It's called atheological apologetics. That's actually the name of a scholarly paper. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take that paper, which is not an easy read, and I'm going to have ChatGPT distill it down into a multi-paragraph section that can be digested by people out there. So the overwhelming majority of atheists that you're going to be dealing with are going to be thinking and exercising what is called atheological apologetics. And what that entails is they are reasoning and speaking as though their skeptical position, whether they want to identify as an atheist or an agnostic, is a default position.
Sure.
And therefore, anything that differs from what they consider to be the default position, excuse me, I have the hiccups, is a novel overlay or introduction that unilaterally requires a defense. And they can just sit there going, nah, bro, right?
Yeah.
But not saying I'm not persuaded or you haven't demonstrated that. That's not a rebuttal.
Right.
But it is an implicit counterclaim because they're going to be operating from a different worldview, right? I could go on, but go ahead.
My last question, Darth, I don't want to take up any more of your time. Thanks so far.
You're the other than Tony, you're free to go.
No, okay, yeah. The claim that morality is subjective, that has to carry over into all relativism, not just moralism, correct? So if I say,
when they say all morality is subjective,
is that also okay? Are they then now random relativist?
Okay, so whenever somebody makes a universal claim,
is that a universal claim?
Yeah, when you say all Democrats are evil, that's a universal claim.
Right.
If I say most Democrats are evil, that's not a universal claim. But if you say all X's are Y's, that's a universal claim. So if you say all morality is subjective, that's an unqualified universal declaration. How could they possibly know that? In order to establish that, first of all, the statement "all morality is subjective" is, upon a very careful analysis, is what we call a performative contradiction. It's a proposition that a performative contradiction is a proposition or a statement that is in some way self-referential, either by its semantic content that undermines it, or the background information that would be needed to identify and defend in order to facilitate the proposition. So saying all morality is subjective would entail from that there is no God.
And there's a very easy way to expose that. If they say all morality is subjective, just say, is it objective that all morality is subjective?
Okay, that's where I'm leading to. So then it would automatically beg the response. So if I say all morality is subjective, it would seem intuitive to reply by saying, is that an objective truth or is that a subjective truth?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Is it objective, or I think what you would be better off doing, instead of saying subjective, say relativistic. Okay.
Okay. But
this way, how would they be able to establish that all moral notions have no ultimate objective grounding? And then what they're going to respond to you is saying, I have no reason to believe it. Can you prove otherwise? Which is an appeal to ignorance fallacy.
Right.
Yeah.
So I have seen some people, when they go down the moral route, the good faith ones will say, okay, I can't claim epistemic certainty about anything. I'm just telling you what I like. And I'm like, okay.
Yes, yeah.
If you're telling me what you like, well, I mean, I'm interested in having a thank you. I like ice cream. Cool. Yeah. Like, I like ice cream. Do you like ice cream? Cool.
Yeah, but that's not a claim. That's
right. It's just them telling you. And then also I could say, okay, well, if you have any kind of values, whether they be moral, right? Well, then why? Because they're gonna try to formulate some sense of consistency, right, in order to be more appealing with their argument. And the problem with consistency is that consistency is an epistemic value. That's a value, like things like logic, consistency. These are epistemic values, meaning they're just knowledge-based values that are independent of any kinds of attitudes or preferences. And so if we have epistemic values, well then why don't you have moral values? And if you have moral values, right, then what kind of moral values do you have? When it comes to moral claims, you're either going to be a cognitivist or a non-cognitivist. And a cognitivist is somebody that there's a branch, it's a branch that says that you believe there's at least some truth in moral language or claims. And then there's non-cognitivists, which is another branch that says that denies that there's no truth in moral claims or moral language. And depending on how you respond to that, that's going to tell you what they are morally. If they're saying they're a subjectivist or they're something of that, or a moral relativist, well, you can definitely kind of point out that basically it's just going to be what they like and things like that when they get into relativism, and that some of it's going to depend on other people if they're a relativist. So it's like, and then if they realize you're taking them down that path, they might switch to non-cognitivism and just say that they're like some kind of nihilist or emotivist or something like that. And an emotivist is an interesting one. They'll just basically subscribe to the verification principle, and the verification principle just simply goes like this. The only statements of value are those that are analytic or synthetic. Analytic being that they're just logically or internally consistent within themselves, and then synthetic just being that it can be verified. Like if I said there's a tree on the other side of the hill, you go over there and verify that that tree exists, right? That's a synthetic proposition. And so they believe that the only statements of value are analytic or synthetic. And so the problem with that, though, is that they have to deny a lot of things, and then you have to get into a discussion about what truth is, and then you'll take them down that dialogue about showing them that they can't really ground what truth is, and of course that can always lead back.
Because these things can't be justified. Okay, so just to quantify all of this in sort of a unique synopsis, or something I can walk away with, basically. If one appeals or subscribes to moral subjectivism, what they're saying is that they are a relativist, pure and plain and simple.
Well, those are subjectivists and objectivists are two that are under the branch of cognitivists. So basically, you ask somebody, do you believe there's at least some moral truth, some truth to moral language? And if they say yes, there's moral objectivism, there's subjectivism, there's moral relativism, there's moral realism, right? So if they say they are a subjectivist, they're basically just saying it's their attitudes or preference towards things that basically...
Which is the most common.
It's the most common, but relativist, I would say, is more common, because relativist basically takes subjectivism and says, like, yes, this is based on like what I think are my attitudes or preferences, but then I get together with other people and we just agree what kind of things we all like together, basically.
Oh yeah, social contract, or what the C.S. Lewis called the herd mentality.
Right. So a moral relativist is going to ultimately have to appeal to the majority, which moral relativists tend to be utilitarians.
So
okay, got a few answers. I need to go. I got a few answers, and it's a lot to go back on, but I appreciate it.
Okay, thanks for coming.
Do we go anywhere besides this?
Yeah, it never ceases to amaze me how inept the overwhelming majority of skeptics and atheists are. They just don't realize that they're just spouting cliches and slogans.
Right. It's nuts. Like, yeah, I got into a debate with a gal the other day, and she was basically, I think she tries to poke and prod to see if she can find a way, and I basically tell her each time, I'm like, listen, there's no getting around this. You're saying you don't have epistemic certainty. You're just telling me what you like. I don't even know. How do I even know you're here? You're probably just a freaking phantom, because you have to deny your own existence if you deny truth and objectivity and facts. So yeah. I was like, am I talking to a phantom right now?
Right. But you see, what we need to do is we need to make it clear to them there's only two possible conceptualizations of the world, okay? And only one of them can be true, and that's the God-dependent world versus the God-independent world. Now, we can only come to know that the God-dependent world is true by recognizing that the world is revelatory of God and by God, in that it exemplifies ultimate design and intentionality from the smallest to the grandest scale. And the issue is not, you're not going to find very many people who saying the world does not exemplify design at all different scales. What they'll argue is that versus the world exemplifies ultimate design and intentionality by God versus the world is an illusion of design. And when they say it's an illusion of design, then they're going to have to explain their position, just like they insist that grounded and sustained by ultimate design and intentionality by the diversity and order, and they're going to need to presuppose order, the regularity of nature, things like that. They're optimizing that those foundational parameters and not God.